What is up, everyone, and welcome to episode 99 of the Jacksonian from yours truly, Jackson Johnson. And I'm joined by a Central Florida expert, the one and only himself, Jeff Sharon, as we're going over quite a lot about Central Florida football and basketball and much more, and how the Scott Frost era is doing, and how the basketball team can continue to put their foot forward and going into the 2026 edition of March Madness. And let me tell you something, folks. You're going to be in for a wild ride and a good time for a long time. How you doing today, good buddy?
How you doing, Jackson? Good to have you. Good. It's good to see you. And it's good to be on with you, man. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for coming on, because I figured to myself, I'm getting a Central Florida expert. You're the guy, my friend.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. You got to cover them in the days of the George O'Leary era. That's cool in of itself. You got to cover the Conference USA days, the beginning era of the American Athletic Conference, and then when they were like heading over to the Big 12, like boom. That's like now that's a go-to right there.
I'll give you one more. My freshman year at UCF, we were a D1 independent, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
And the following year, we joined the MAC for 2 years.
Oh,
And and I'll tell you that was a fun time because that was at a time when the MAC was people think of Maction and Tuesday Night Football now, but back then there was a lot of talent in that league. I saw Ben Roethlisberger when he was at Miami of Ohio. We saw Michael Turner when he was at Northern Illinois. Kent State was talented. Akron with Charlie Fry at Akron. It was a good Toledo was excellent. Byron Leftwich was at Marshall. It was quite a time, and to see how far UCF has come from then, right, to where it is now in the Big 12. You're right. It's been a wild ride, and we're really proud of what the program has accomplished and what it has yet to accomplish too.
oh man, and like 2000, and I believe they upset my Crimson Tide, which was
That's
like
right.
the last year of the DeBosa, which that dude had his priorities all mixed up. 1999, he's out doing the mess around with his secretary, and the only reason why they even kept him around was because he was winning. I'm like, I don't care. You're out. Your priorities are out of whack.
We
You're
still we still love to tout that we are 1-0 all time against Alabama.
I feel like that could change if there's a home and home, but it's like we'll definitely wait and see for sure. But oh man, that's so fun. But for those who don't know about you and the magic you produce, would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been working with on Black and Gold Banneret for the last 10 years, and even though that ride is coming to an end, we've done a lot of work on UCF covering not just football and basketball, but also all the other sports at UCF that we feel like don't always get all of the publicity that they deserve. For example, we have a very good softball team, and that's making its climb in the Big 12 right now. Our soccer programs have been very good for a long time. Golf and tennis have really made some strides, and the thing is with us is that we're one of the we're not the youngest D1A or D1A FBS program, but we are the youngest school.
Yeah.
We've only been around since 1963. We've only had football since 1979, and we've moved from we're the only I think aside from now James Madison, we were the only school that started D3 and then went D2, D1 AA at the time, now FCS, and now D1 FBS. And actually, we are the only school that's gone through all of those transitions and ended up in the Power Four. So, it's a pretty remarkable ride. There's a lot of schools that have had a lot of that have had much longer head starts on us than we have, but we've managed to put it together and put together some really excellent teams along the road, and we're open to do that again in the next year as well. We had football has been through a big transition, of course, not just with the ones that everyone's been through with NIL and the portal, but also with a big coaching transition. Um, and but we're trying. But so far, I think the outlook for football is cautiously optimistic. The outlook for basketball, at least this year, is very optimistic. And I know we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think it's. I've always tried to get out the word about our program and making sure that everybody knows that we're here for a reason.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it's been an incredible journey right then and there for Central Florida. I mean, because it's like, they've been pretty amazing. Although I wish they could play South Florida every year, but I know that's not happening. But and if I had it my way with the Florida government, I would just kind of go to their state senate, state Congress, be like, "Hey, can you do me a solid? I know I'm not a Florida resident, but keep it that Florida State are playing one another, but while we're at it, have Miami and Florida play one another, and make sure Miami, Florida State play one another every year. But you gotta make sure Florida plays Central Florida at least twice a decade. Same with Florida State, and same with Miami. Because let's be honest, I want to see a Florida State Central Florida matchup. I want to see a Miami Central Florida. It feels like it would be pretty good for the state of Florida right there, and it would be pretty awesome for the University of Central Florida. It would just kind of ensure that, hey, we are that fourth Florida school. We're here to stay, y'all.
Yeah, we've played Florida. We played them up in Gainesville 2 years ago.
Yep.
Every once in a while, when the schedule rolls around, we'll play we'll play a game against Florida. We played them in the bowl game, of course, in Gasparilla Bowl. We beat them. The largest home crowd in our on campus stadium's history, the Acrisure Bounce House, was for a game against the Miami Hurricanes in
Yeah.
2009, and I mean that
October
shows you how.
17th on CBS Sports Network, I believe.
Yeah, it was way back in the day, but it was but everybody came up from South Florida for that game. We've gotten some good crowds too with some of the other schools in Florida as well. Whenever we've played FAU or FIU, those are surprisingly big schools, and it's a 3-hour drive from South Florida, so we get good crowds at our stadium for those in-state opponents, and I'm kind of a traditionalist in that way. There's a debate in the fan base about, particularly when it comes to South Florida,
Yeah.
the University of South Florida, USF. Some school, a lot of fans were like, "Hey, look, we've left them in the dust." The political situation between the two schools was pretty toxic back when we were trying to join the
Yeah.
Big East at the time. But I think there's a somewhat growing contingent of fans who kind of miss the atmosphere that the War on I-4 games had, because, and I'm one of them, because I think that's an important part of college sports, is not just can you compete for a national championship, but how do you measure yourself against a rival?
Yeah.
For every Texas, there's a Texas A&M. For every Kansas, there's a Kansas State. For every Ohio State, there's a Michigan, and that was our rivalry. And it's kind of it is sort of, I personally think, a little bit of an indictment on South Florida that they actually had a head start on us in the Big East and then squandered that. They're trying belatedly to get on board, and supposedly they're going to be building a new on-campus football stadium, but they still have a ways to go, and we wonder if maybe UCF caught the last train out of the station with this last conference expansion. But you never know. I think that there's I think that the better all these schools are in the state of Florida, and the more they play each other, the better it is for the state of Florida, and the better it is for football,
Yeah.
especially in the state of Florida. So, I continue to hang on to my traditions in that way. I'm not normally a traditionalist, but I'm a traditionalist about that.
Well, I'm always like a traditionalist when it comes to like the sports world for college football, college basketball, but like it's like everything else, like you can do what you want. But for Central Florida, it's kind of feel like how West Virginia was when they were first in the Big 12. They were just kind of like, oh, we got to travel this location, that location. I mean, it's like Central Florida, Colorado rivalry week makes 0 sense, but it's just nothing against either one of them, and nothing against, but it's like it's just what is the Big 12 commissioner doing?
Well, I tell you what he did. I really like what Brett Yormark has been doing with the
Oh yeah,
conference. He's been way ahead of the curve on a couple of things.
yeah,
The first thing was diving in on brands that have growth.
yes,
And certainly UCF is one of those. We're one of the largest universities in the country. We have one of the largest we pump out more graduates than most universities in the country right now. And that's why we're slowly but surely catching up on that, 100 year head start that a lot of our rivals have. So we dove in early on that. And then also I think a lot of our other sports, especially men's basketball, were kind of underappreciated brands. And I think that this year has been really important for basketball, showing that UCF can compete on the national level. We've beaten Kansas. We've beaten Texas Tech. Of course, we have Utah, BYU coming up coming up this week. Utah's not very good, but BYU, if we can beat them and AJ Debatza in Provo, that would be a huge win for the program. We haven't been to the NCAA tournament since 2019 when we had Taco Fall and
man,
Aubrey Dawkins and BJ Taylor. So to get back to that as a Big 12 team, I think would be a tremendous boost to the basketball program. And I think that's the other thing that Yormark has kind of dove in on. He knows that this is a very good basketball conference, and it's kind of like, remember the movie Trading Places, buy low,
yeah,
sell high, right? And he bought, I think he thought, I'm going to buy low on UCF. It's a good football brand. We know it is. It's an underappreciated basketball brand. It's a very good and undersold brand in other sports as well. So that's why UCF that's why we are where we are. And, um, all the other things that I think that a lot of traditionalists would say about, oh man, what are we doing in the Big 12? Well, two things about that. Number one, um, it kind of is what it is, and so we're going to ride that wave as long as we can, right?
oh
Number
great.
one.
Like geography, like if people are getting upset about that, that ship has sailed a
Yeah.
long time
Yeah.
ago.
And that's the thing. Like, that ship sailed when we were in the American, because you remember in the American we had Houston, we got
Yep,
SMU.
yep.
We had several teams that were out west. Tulsa. Tulsa was always was a long
San
road trip for them.
Diego State was gonna join in the American Athletic Conference, but then they had second thoughts at the 11th hour on New Year's
Yeah.
Eve of 2012.
Yeah, and maybe it's interesting because they've had some really good moments as a program too recently and in the past, but um, I think that they're probably going to be in a pretty good spot as it is with them moving into what's going, I guess the newfangled Pac-12, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really it's fun to see UCF compete on the level with a lot of these schools that we all grew up thinking, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we could compete with them?
Oh, yeah.
Heads up. And now we're finally doing it. And we're seeing, the climb is hard. There's no doubt about that. But, we're making it. And it's slow. It's the toughest climb that UCF has had in its conference history. When we got to Conference USA, we played in the Conference USA championship game in football the first year we were there.
Yeah.
We won the American the first year we were there.
Beat Louisville on a Friday night.
Yeah,
That's what clinched it.
huge win. Huge.
Close loss to South Carolina
Yeah,
in
that was a
the
monumental win, that win in Louisville in the history of the program. And yeah, lost to South Carolina. Had we not lost to South Carolina, who knows where that team might have ended up. But
Ooh.
um, as it was, we beat Baylor in the Fiesta Bowl that year. That's when everyone sort of sat up and started taking notice.
Yeah.
And 2017 was the real coming out party. And
Oh,
since then we've been, we're
thank
happy to
you
roll
for
the
being
dice with
the
the big
Auburn
boys.
Tigers.
You're welcome. Um, that was a tremendous moment. I was there in Atlanta, and it was the one of the coldest days I can possibly remember. But thankfully, we were in the dome, and it felt like everyone who had been to UCF was in that stadium that day, and it was a real moment for the university. It really was, and that was when we finally. I think we undoubtedly served notice that we were here to stay.
Oh man, there we go. Like it's been pretty awesome seeing where things been going. Like the era that was not good that I feel like was the Malzahn era because like I remember hearing some fans saying that oh Malzahn's gonna do great. It's like yeah you're gonna be disappointed with Malzahn because it's gonna be when everybody's talking about Malzahn and how great his teams are, they do horrible. But when nobody's talking about Malzahn or how good of a job he's doing or how terrible of a job he's doing, that's when Malzahn teams thrive. But that was something yeah, particularly in case 2023 Central Florida, Oklahoma. Nobody was really thinking about Central Florida, Oklahoma. What happens? Central Florida almost upsets Oklahoma. They were like a weird Jekyll and Hyde team with Malzahn, but I know you're not going to have to worry about that with Scott Frost. How are you feeling about the second stint of the Frost era so far?
I'm actually really excited about it. I think a lot of fans remember around here like how it ended, and it was very bittersweet. We go 13-0, we win the Peach Bowl, but he announces he's going to Nebraska prior to that, and then is
Yeah.
jetting back and forth between Lincoln and Orlando. On one hand, trying to assemble the program in Lincoln, and on the other hand, trying to finish the job in Orlando. And there was a lot of thoughts about like, well, man, are we just going to be that school that that it's just a that are just are we a stepping stone school? Is that all we are? And it didn't work out for Scott in Nebraska for a number of different reasons. But I think there was always that. It's funny in conversation. Sometimes you'll be like, wouldn't it be fun if Scott Frost came back? Maybe we
Yeah.
could run it back a little bit. And I was like, well, if we do, it's going to be a lot different. And it is. Back then, we were clearly a team that was. Got to remember, he took over a team that went 0-12 in
Yeah.
2015, and they were a bad 0-12. Like you've seen some bad teams out there like that it was rough. And he changed the program's culture from the inside out. And that's what I think everyone remembers him so fondly for. And now that he's back, I think he said so in his introductory press conference, at the start of the year. He was like, hey, look, we're not going to go undefeated in year 2, just so you all know. which
Yeah.
which it's like we get it. But at a time when I think player development is, and we've seen this with Indiana, right? At a time when player development I think is underappreciated, Scott understands the culture at UCF, I think, better than anybody else possibly could.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the selling point for UCF is for recruits, both from high school and in the transfer portal is, look, we're not Indiana. We're not Ohio State. We're not Michigan. We're not trying to be. But we are a great place where you can come, have a great time, get a good education, and you're still going to compete on this level with those kinds of schools. And you could be a hired hand somewhere else, or you could build a legacy here, because a lot of those places, they already have their legacies, right? Here we're still building something that's new. And last year, 5-7 in his first year, 2-7 in the conference. It was tough. We had some tough losses in there. There's no doubt about that. Had some solid wins here and there. But I think that, looking at what he's been able to do in the transfer portal this offseason, I'm really excited about what the team has to, what they have in front of them for 2026. I think that, also, here's the thing. he was also hired pretty late in the cycle. So
Yeah.
he didn't have it, the transfer portal came and went. So he didn't have a lot of time really uh, to assemble the kind of roster that I think he has. Now he has a full cycle under his belt. We got Alonzo Barnett from James Madison, who led JMU to the college football playoff last year. Excellent quarterback. Um, yeah, it's going to be this is going to be a much different team. I don't think we're going to see much of the same as we saw from last year. Am I, right sharpieing us in as into the Big 12 championship game? No, not yet. But I don't think anybody is, right? Because
No.
we don't know what's going to happen with the amount of player movement that we have. It's very hard to predict, and so you may as well just roll the dice. And I think that Scott has done that. So 2026 is going to be a very intriguing year.
Agreed. And I'll go ahead and pull up the schedule for Central Florida. So you gotta go to Pitt, and I always make I joke, but I'm also kind of serious when I make this statement about how Pittsburgh is where dreams go to die. But
They did.
you're
They
not a
did for
top
us a
20.
few years ago. That's for sure. We lost a really tough one to Kenny Pickett up there back during the Malzahn era, a game that I think a lot of fans still think that we should have won.
Oh yeah, it's like that. That's always like happening for top 25 teams. Like except for Notre Dame because like Notre Dame doesn't matter for Pitt. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
I actually do think. Forgive me, but I actually think that the schedule actually worked out pretty well for us because if you look at how this is shaken out, a lot of the tougher teams on the slate we're playing at home.
oh yeah,
Iowa State, we're playing at home. Arizona State, we're playing at home. TCU, we're playing at home. Um, was it BYU? We're playing at home. So, we caught a couple breaks with the schedule this year, I think. And, even in the road games, we do have some tough ones. We're going to have to go out to Colorado on Thanksgiving weekend. It's going to be freezing out there. We got to go to Kansas. That's a remarkably tough place to play. We don't know what we're going to get from Oklahoma State with the new coach. They're going to be fired up for that. And then Houston always gives us a game. I feel like Houston is kind of like our Big 12 rival now.
at this point,
Yeah,
yeah,
because we shared time in the American and in Conference USA.
yep.
We have the whole space program thing happening, right? With
Oh, yeah.
UCF being not far from Cape Canaveral, only about 35 miles as the crow flies, and Houston, of course, being the home of Mission Control and Johnson Space Center. And the fact that we're like we're big public schools located in big urban areas, and I love playing them in every sport. I just think it's fun to measure us up against them, especially in basketball. And because Kelvin Sampson has done such a wonderful job at Houston,
Man,
and we. But on the football side, it's fun when we and them get together. We've had some very good battles over in the past.
man, yeah, because like I always like to look back at those Central Florida Houston matchups. So those are some pretty fun games in college football right there.
Yeah.
I
They were the first top 25 team we ever beat. UCF beat Houston back in 2009, I believe it was. And
yes,
Case
on
Keenum was
November.
there.
Yeah,
And that was our first ever top 25 win. So that was only in 2009. So that shows you how quickly UCF has come a long way.
oh, I remember that Houston team of '09. They beat Oklahoma State. They beat Texas Tech on September 26th of '09 because that was 4 days before I turned 12 years old. And Mike Patrick and Craig James were on the call. That was an 8:15 p.m. game on ESPN2. I was sick with swine flu at that time,
Ooh.
keeping an eye on that game. And Houston won by a point against Texas Tech. But then a week later, Houston got upset by UTEP, but they bounced back against Mississippi State on ESPNU in week 6. And that was also the week that Sam Bradford came back from his 4-week recovery of getting his shoulder hurt against BYU in the inaugural Jerry Dome game from '09 as Oklahoma beat the snot out of Baylor in '09.
Yeah.
Although Oklahoma had a slim shot of making it back in the Natty run, but still had a shot at making it in the Big 12 title run on account of the fact that they had 0 conference losses at that time because of that loss to BYU, and they lost to Miami in week 5, of course.
Yeah, that year was an interesting year for us too because that was also the year that we played Miami in that game where we had 48,000 people.
Week 7 on
Week
CBS
7,
Sports
October
Network.
17th, and then we played at Texas too, and got beat pretty good by Texas, 35-3. But a week later was that Houston game, and it was kind of a in Conference USA at the time, it was a must-win game for us, and Houston was heavily favored because they were number 13 in the country at that time. They were thinking that they would be sort of they could be a BCS spoiler, and we beat them. And it was that was a huge moment, I think, in that season, and it propelled us to a bowl game. We lost to Rutgers actually in the back then the St. Petersburg Bowl, which is now the Gasparilla Bowl. They play it in Tampa now, but that was again one of those kind of moments where you could kind of see something building at that time when we were in Conference USA, and eventually it got to us, being a true competitor in that conference for a good 3-4 years, and then eventually we got to the American.
Oh man, like the 2013 season, as you said, monumental. That was an amazing season. 2017 made everybody listen, and I'm can't help but feel like I think some good things can happen for sure. I think Central Florida can make it back to a bowl game, obviously. But, and I really want to see things really work out for Scott Frost because I want to see nothing but awesomeness for that guy because he's pretty cool. It was just a shame the Nebraska era didn't work out. But at the same time, it's just like Nebraska. I kind of wish Frost had stayed with Central Florida for 2018 and beyond. Not to say that the Heupel era wasn't all right or anything, but it's just like Frost at 2018 Central Florida, just kind of like build a legacy over there, just stay there and see where Nebraska wanted to go with Mike Leach. I mean, that would have been all right because I think Bill Moose said he wanted to get Leach or somebody else, but he felt pressured on getting Frost from the administration. Like, what was your thought process like when you heard that in person?
I think the hard part, at least from looking back at that time in the program's history, Scott was in a really tough spot, right?
Yeah.
Because he's said, and multiple times, and other people have corroborated this, that he, in his heart of hearts, he didn't want to go. He didn't want to leave. He didn't want to leave Orlando. But at the same time, he's a Nebraska kid. He grew up in Nebraska. Obviously, he played in Nebraska. He played at Nebraska. Nebraska meant a lot to him. Yeah, I mean, it's his alma mater. He played for Tom Osborne. Tom Osborne obviously is a god in Nebraska football. I mean, and he felt an obligation when asked by his alma mater to come back. And I tell everybody, I'm like, if you were in his shoes, you would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
I think the part of the reason why it didn't work out at Nebraska was Nebraska is not the Nebraska we grew up with.
Nope.
Recruiting is a national game now. You can't just pull. It's not. Nebraska really excelled in the 70s and in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when recruiting was mostly a regional thing. It's not that anymore. The internet has happened, and now you have a hard time convincing kids who are of that kind of talent that they were getting to go out to Lincoln. It's a tough sell.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't quite for the fans to be that disappointed in what Scott in Scott's tenure there. Well, it's not, you're not going to recapture what you had in the 80s and the 90s, right? It's just not going to happen anymore.
No.
So I felt like it was a very, very difficult hand that he had to deal with. It was almost no way he could reach the expectations that they had, especially when because naturally the expectations of the average Nebraska fan at that time was going to be, oh, he went 13-0 at UCF, college football playoff, here we come.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't going to work out like that.
Yeah.
I think in Nebraska at the current in its current state. Now, a place like UCF, I think Scott, again, he can recapture that success. Now, it's not going to look the same that it did in 2017 at all, and it's going to take much more time, but it is there. And yeah, I mean, this is the thing that we have here at UCF, and I've been kind of tooting this horn a little bit, is like, we got to stay patient with this, because we still have, this is the biggest challenge. Being in the Big 12 and becoming competitive in the Big 12 is the biggest challenge that this athletic department has ever had. We were more than ready to compete in the MAC, and we did, at least for that first year. We were more than ready to compete at Conference USA. We were more than ready to compete in the American. This is a different ballgame, especially now, post NIL, post transfer portal. So it's not going to be a microwave dynasty.
No, but I will say though, telling a kid that you get to go to Florida and play the Margaritaville song in spring break, that's a pretty good sales pitch.
Well, if you're from, here's the other thing. It's a lot of the cool thing about Orlando is, if you're recruiting kids from, say, South Florida, right, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, or from Tampa or from Jacksonville, we're just far enough away where, you can kind of develop your own identity.
Oh yeah.
Right. But we're just close enough where, mom and dad can come to the game every Saturday.
Oh yeah.
Or you can, it's a short drive home for the holidays. And that's, I mean, that's a good selling point for Orlando. It's a great place to live. It's one of the fastest growing metro areas in the United States for a reason.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean, why not spend your college time here?
Exactly. I mean, like, there you go. I mean, it's one of the best places to go to. I mean, go to Orlando, Florida, have a good time. Especially, you get to go see like Disney. I think like Universal, like theme parks there. I thought,
yeah.
so.
Although it's at least, listen, Universal's a good half-hour drive at least, barring traffic here from campus, and Disney's about 45, 50 minutes. So it's not that close. But
well, on Bryce's side, like, if I'm ever going one of those places, I'll be like, give me a selfie with one of the minions, and also get me a selfie with the Donald Duck mascot. There you go. I mean, Mickey Mouse is all right, but Donald Duck, everybody can relate to Donald Duck. Although we can't relate to Donald Duck breaking the windows, tearing out a power cord. like
we've had some games that have caused me to do exactly that. I'm not proud of it either.
Oh man, like those some classes, man. Love those old cartoons, man. Like, man. But I will say though, seeing the men's basketball team looking really good. I mean, it's like I'm just like, wow, Central Florida men's basketball going to March Madness in the Big 12. Nice.
Well, it's looking real good. I tell you that's the one thing about being in the Big 12 that's good, is like, playing against that conference's competition in basketball is a tremendous help. I said before the season, if you get 20 wins and you go 500 in the conference, 500, you're in the tournament.
Yep.
And right now, UCF is a 46 in the net rankings. Joe Lunardi on ESPN has us as one of the last 4 buys. We're a 10 seed right now. Ooh. I think that, we have a very good shot right now, if we hold serve, to get to 20 wins and 500 in the conference heading into the conference tournament. Once we get there, I think if you go 500 in the conference tournament, right, win your first game, and then see who you play in the next round. Like right now, I think UCF is, I'll check the standings, but right now we are
tied 6th in the Big 12.
Yeah, tied for 6th. So worst case, tied for 6th with BYU and West Virginia.
Wow.
Now, the worst case scenario out of being in that spot, let's say we finish 8th, right? Well, the
Wow.
way the tournament shakes out is if you're the 8, you get a bye to the second round, and you play the winner of the 9 versus 16 game.
Ooh,
You
right.
should win that game, right? Preferably you would want to win that, definitely want to beat that 9 team. If you beat the 16, obviously you should. But if you get through that first game, then guess who you're playing? You're playing the 1.
Hmm.
So if that's Houston or Arizona, then you're getting a shot at one of those teams that's a potential 1 seed. You knock one of them off,
No.
you're in.
Oh,
There's no doubt that you're in, and then you're playing with house money. But even if you lose that to that 1 seed, it helps out your net rankings such that okay, we have the metrics to be in, and then let the chips fall. So we got to make sure that we stay healthy. We got to make sure that we take care of business on the home court. We've got some key home games coming up. Obviously we talked about Utah on the road and BYU on the road coming up in this weekend. I'd like to see us at least split these two, especially against Utah. Utah's really struggling. We did win at Colorado earlier this year, so we've won out west already. We've proven we can do that. Then you come home and you got Baylor and Oklahoma State. Got to take care of those 2 games.
there we go.
Yeah, and then roll the dice at West Virginia. West Virginia is a very tough place to play. They beat us here a couple weeks ago by 7 in a game where we had a 14-point lead on them, and we let it get away. And we were able to stop the bleeding a little bit with that latest win over TCU 3 days ago. But now it's crunch time. All right, so let's so I'm thinking when we look at this, finish the job, take care of the home court, and then take care of Utah, take care of the home court, and then that would clinch over 500 in the Big 12.
Oh yeah.
And if we can get West Virginia, if we can get them back on their court, I like where we sit at that point. And then BYU is just playing with house money. If we beat BYU in their place, oh boy, that's going to be a tough ask. But I think we can do it. I think we got a shot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I will say though, just kind of like looking at the bracketology, because I was kind of scrolling through it for the audience to see, because we see, according to Lenardi, Central Florida could play North Carolina State in Philadelphia. Now the winner of that game would play UConn, but that would be a pretty good game, Central Florida, North Carolina State.
I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it one bit. If we're a 10, we're probably going to play another power conference team, right? Another at-large selection from the power conferences. Which I think that we certainly our backcourt can match up with any of those kinds of teams that we would be up there against. But again, it's hard to kind of evaluate that because who knows who they're going to put us in the bracket with. But if you look at that, the history of those sort of 7-10 matchups, those are usually pretty close games. And I think that, whoever we would match up if we're a 10 would, I think that would be a pretty favorable matchup for us. Now, we could go on a run here and then we end up as a 7 or an 8. And then who knows how that works, right? So there's still, I feel like even now, 8 days until the month of March, there's still a lot of moving parts left. So, in terms of predicting exact matchups, oh boy, I don't know. But predicting where we are in the sort of pecking order, in the hierarchy of teams, based on bracket seeding, I like where we are.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're in a good position, and Central Florida can make a good run in the conference tournament. Like, say, go to the semifinals. Oh, you're in the money.
I love it. Oh, I would love it. I would love to get another shot at teams like, I'd love to get another shot at Arizona. I thought we played them really well last month. In our place. We lost to them by 7 points, and they're a good basketball team. They're big and they are strong, but we hung with them. We hung with them out there. I would like to see us, get another shot at, we may get another shot at, for example, Houston. Houston, man, they play such good defense, but I feel like they're, every once in a while, we'll match up with them really well. We got beat by 24 points at their place, and that was right after the win against Texas Tech on our home floor. Um, I don't know. I feel like we got another good shot at Houston coming up. So, I'm am I saying I'm not saying we would be favored at all against those teams. What I'm saying is in that one game situation, you just never know, right? I mean, we've seen upsets of that kind more times than we can count in conference tournaments. And in that, and I would love to see us match up again because that with one of those potential one seeds in Arizona or Houston, I think that would be a very fun matchup once again.
Oh yeah, I mean, like Arizona will be a top seed, and I'm sure they'll dominate everybody once again. But are they going to be going to a Final Four March Madness? My money says no.
I listen. Don't sleep on that team. I saw them
Oh,
up
I'm
close and
not.
personal, and the thing that Arizona has is just size and strength. They are a
True.
big, strong team. Like that these guys they do not miss weightlifting, right?
No.
Like coming out and seeing, I was like, I would not want to be, have to shoulder these guys down low, in the paint. But again, every action has its equal and opposite reaction. Sometimes we almost caught them in that game. There were some matchups that worked, and so I don't know. You may catch them on a bad day. They're vulnerable too. I think they've lost a couple of pretty key games here and there that might have been pretty surprising. They lost two in a row, one at Kansas, and then they lost in overtime to Texas Tech at home before they just bounced back against BYU. But they're a good team. And then Houston.
Ooh.
I mean, Houston is to me, they're the best defensive team in the country.
Agreed.
Yeah, Kelvin Sampson is just he's the Buddy Ryan of college basketball. He knows how to coach defense. They wear you out. Like they dictate the game on defense. And the thing that I thought that was their Achilles heel last year in the national championship game against Florida was they didn't have a bona fide scoring threat on offense, a guy that they could give the ball to and who says, "Give me the ball, I'll save us," right? And now they have that with Flemings. He is a talent, man. He's probably the quickest player I've seen on the floor in a long time. And as young as he is, I've been very impressed with how the maturity of his game. And I would not be surprised to see them back in the Final Four. I would not be. Defense travels. They know how to defend. And now they got a scoring threat that can push them over the top. Houston's real dangerous.
Well, I will say I don't expect my Crimson Tide to win it all in college basketball, but I mean, cross my fingers, of course. But I would like to see Houston win it all, like before Kelvin Sampson has that day where he says, "I'm retiring." Like I want to see him get a natty because because it's like after like the whack jobs that were calling for Samson's head, like in '08, where it's like they were making him out to seem like this criminal thug. Like the years he was at Indiana, it's like, wait a minute, we got double crossed on Kelvin Sampson. It's like,
I've seen. I think he might be. All things being equal, I think he might be the best coach in the country.
agree,
Because I think it's you know and I can recall watching Kelvin when he was at Tulsa. Okay.
man. Yeah,
Everywhere he's gone, he's won, and he's won it with the same formula, which is just hard-nosed, tough defense.
yeah,
His teams will wear you out. And I I admire seeing teams that play they do the thing that I always impresses me about them is how close together they play. It sounds like a cliche, but when you really watch teams, sometimes you can see like, okay, this guy's kind of doing his own thing. This guy down here, okay, the ball kind of stops with him. With Houston, it's five guys playing together as one unit more than any other team I've ever seen. And that is a testament to coaching, because he knows how to get these guys to to develop the chemistry that they're going to need in order to win big games in February and March, right? And that's a hard thing to do at any level. It was a hard thing to do for years. It's even harder now considering how much turnover there is with the transfer portal. Go back and, by the way, go back and look at their roster. Have they lost that many guys to the portal? No, they have not. And that's also a testament to Kelvin, that he's managed to keep guys who probably could have easily gone somewhere else.
And I've never heard about any coaches wanting to put Kelvin Sampson in his place to the point where it's like, I'm sick of that dude. I've never heard any opposing coaches say anything negative about him. Like, kind of like with Calipari, where it's like Calipari, like that dude's a turd. But I will say about Calipari, he's never run his mouth about it, because I always hear like a lot of coaches or former coaches run their mouth about like NIL, which, I mean, whatever you feel about NIL, cool, whatever, but it's like Calipari, he's kept his mouth shut on it, because he knows if he speaks one negative thing about it, there's going to be past articles of the stuff he was doing in the 90s and the 2000s, back when he was at UMass and Memphis, and he knows it.
Well, I think the thing with Coach Cal, and we saw him here many years when he was with Memphis, was, the one thing I admired about Coach Calipari is he's always very promotional about the league that he's in. Right, when he was at Memphis, he really talked up UCF a lot. We played some tough games with them.
Yeah.
And in addition, his players are fiercely loyal to him.
True.
And in the same way that that Kelvin Sampson's players are fiercely loyal to him. And I think that has to speak for something.
True.
For all the, for all the stuff that's come out about Coach Cal over the years, his players love him. And that's, sometimes, I think more often than not, we see a lot of players' relationships with their coaches, especially now, be seen more as transactional.
Yeah.
It's not transactional between Coach Cal and his guys. It's not transactional between Cal. It's not transactional between Coach Dawkins here at UCF and his guys. His players really do, I think really love him and care about him, and know that he cares about them and their well-being, not just when they're at the program, but in the future. And I mean, as a coach nowadays, I think, what more, or even as a player, what more do you want as a coach? It's, somebody who looks out for me. He's got my back, and so I'm going to have his.
There you go. I mean, that's what you want in a coach, somebody that'll look out for you on and off the field, on and off the court.
Yeah.
And, players that'll look after you right back. There you go.
Same thing with Scott Frost too, by the way, on the football side over here. He's had a number of players from that 2017, 2016, 2017 teams came back are coaches now at UCF, including Mackenzie Milton, our quarterback, Jordan Johnson, our center. And you see a lot of those guys also, if they're not coaches, they come back and they kind of hang around the program, right? Every once in a while, you see them in the facility, you see them in the weight room, hang out, because those guys understand that, it's bigger than just what you see on Saturday or what you see, 2 days a week on, during basketball season. It's we are an institution, and the institution is made up of people, and the people are the most important asset.
True. That's true, man. And, I was just thinking about like the 2026 edition of spring practice for the Golden Knights, just now. For those who haven't really been watching Central Florida football, but need to learn a little more about it heading into the preseason, especially to go get the preseason magazines anytime they got to go to Publix. What are the position battles everybody needs to look out for?
I think it's going to be, it's hard to say, at least early, because we haven't gotten a lot of intel out of the program from, in terms of, leading into 2026. We're not 100% sure about what there's going to be. But I think it's the key one is going to be what how does Alonzo Barnett the third you know adjust to being in a new place, right? I think there's going to be some really good position battles, particularly on the offensive line. I think at times the offensive line struggled last year, especially late. We had some, we had some players who, or some moments there where we had trouble protecting the quarterback, and that really put a dent in some close games that we played, and we had some opportunities that we kind of left on the board there. We also, I think, there's going to be a lot more competition at the skill position players. The wide receiver position was a bit of a struggle last year. We didn't get a lot of production from the wide receivers. I think we want to see, I think that the guys that Scott has brought in particular are going to be, most of them are really veteran guys. And I think he's going to have, guys like Josh Derry, who, is he was an FCS All-American last year at Monmouth in New Jersey, down by the Jersey Shore. And he's here now. Right. I mean, so we're going to see, I think if you're a good football player, you're a good football player. It doesn't matter if you're at FCS or FBS or wherever. If you're good, you're going to find a place. Jonathan Bibbs out of UL Monroe, who's highly touted, who's going to be here as well, and at the wide receiver position. And then we had to reload a lot on defense. I think that all across the front seven in particular, we had to go get some talent. And we got some talent from, including some guys from some other power conference schools, like, Ken Talley, who was at Arkansas last year, Josh Shell, who was at Tennessee, LeJesse Harold, who was a defense fan who's highly touted out of Florida, came over from Florida State. So it's going to be, I think it's kind of going to be like an every man for himself kind of thing. And I think that's what kind of what Scott Frost wants. He wants the cream to rise to the top here. It doesn't matter what your, what your credentials were before, is what can you do for me now? And that's going to be that's going to make for a very competitive spring. Last year we didn't have a spring game per se. We had some open practices to the public, like open scrimmages, but we didn't have a spring game. And the reason why is because we were doing work on the tower at our stadium. They're replacing the Roth Tower, which is where with new suites and a new press box and the whole nine up there. So and the whole stadium was basically a construction zone last spring, and we're doing the same thing here. We're finishing that construction this year, so the new press box is going to be really nice. But at the same time, they don't want people milling around over in that area unless they're wearing hard hats, right? So I don't know what the public availability of spring practice is going to be like, but I can tell you one thing: based on what we've seen from what UCF has done in the transfer portal, there's going to be some pretty tough battles coming up.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wild one for sure. Like I'm excited to see what Central Florida can bring. It's I do think honestly it's gonna be a wild ride for this Golden Knights. It's gonna be awesome seeing what's gonna happen, especially on who's gonna be that top receiver for 2026.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what Scott Frost was running back in 2017. We had a cast of excellent wide receivers. Like, they had a lot of weapons. We had Adrian Killens. We had young Marlon Williams. We had guys like Traquan Smith was out there. Jordan Akins, a tight end who's been very good. He's had a solid NFL career. It's a good, and having those weapons is something that you're gonna need heading into the Big 12. We know how good the offense is. It hasn't quite gotten to be what it used to be, but it's pretty good now.
Oh man, like it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. Like, I'm excited.
Yeah, we're really excited too. It's kind of like we're going into the laboratory, kind of see what we come up with. And, see, I'm old enough to remember, when all the practices used to be open to the public, and, they don't do that anymore. And, it's a situation of all, I get the competitive nature of that. Am I nostalgic for it? Yes. Do I understand? Also, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, man. It's like it's a shame, but it's like I'm sure they'll be back to doing that one of these days.
I don't know. I think I don't think we're going to see public available. I think it's going to be like NFL now, where practices are just closed and you're going to
It's
have
only
people.
available to select people. It's like, oh
Yeah, and, like the big donors are going to be there. Like no media, no regular fans, because it's so there's so much riding on it.
man,
Now there's just so much riding on
man. It's like good grief.
it.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Big 12 for
Yeah.
2026. But let's guys before we sign off on this episode. Do I see an ABA version of the Nets of when the Nets were there?
Oh, well, so all right, funny story about that. So I'm originally from New Jersey,
Right.
and my family's from northern New Jersey. And the first basketball game I ever attended was a New Jersey Nets game. My dad took me to the New Jersey
Wow.
Nets before they moved to Brooklyn. And actually, that top jersey right there is it's not ABA, it's Kenny Anderson. He was one of my favorite
Ooh.
players with the Nets, and below that is the Keith Van Horn jersey, which was from when I loved it when the Nets did that rebrand where they where they kind of had the silver thing like back during the Jason Kidd era. So I've always kind of kept those. I kind of outgrew wearing jerseys, and I decided let me frame them behind me. So I got all my some of my favorite jerseys behind me too.
Oh, there you go. Not in. Is that? Do I see McNabb's jersey on
Yes,
from
sir.
Syracuse?
Yeah. So I went to graduate school at Syracuse as well. So of course, some of us old hats will say, "Well, is that Donovan McNabb, or is that Marvin Graves, or is that R.J. Anderson?" There's a couple.
That's
There's a
good.
couple really good quarterbacks at Syracuse who wore the number 5. I mean, outside of Donovan too.
Oh man, and that number 4 above it, I'm wondering who that is.
That is Alex Haynes. He was our running back at UCF prior to Kevin Smith in 2007. Alex was our all-time leading rusher, and he and I went to UCF at the same exact time. We were there from the fall of '01 through the spring of '05, and he was the captain of the football team for, I believe, the last 2 years, and an outstanding running back, UCF Athletics Hall of Famer, and an all-around good dude. Had a very abbreviated career in the NFL with the Carolina Panthers, but was just a beast to tackle. And I'm kind of sad that there's not that much video of when we played back then in that era. But Alex was a great player, great human, and I actually saw him a few months ago at the recent UCF Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Man,
So
you got.
I always have a soft spot in my heart for guys who worked hard for 4 years, and Alex Haynes is certainly the example of that.
Well, I gotta say that office, man, that was like paradise right there.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Here's the thing. My lovely wife Stephanie, she's like, when we got our house, when we finally got our house, she's like, listen, I'll give you one room, but the rest of the house is mine. Like in terms of I was like, no problem, I got it. So I got, I was able to hang up the jerseys. I got some old, I got some really old newspapers also that I hung on to from my time in South Florida. I got a signed Bernie Kosar over there. Bernie Kosar is pretty cool. And I got another signed photo of Darcy Johnson, who played at UCF for 4 years and also and then played for my favorite NFL team, the New York Giants. So that was really exciting, and I got to meet him and it's great. I also play music on occasion. I refuse to call myself a musician. I am not that good.
Oh, what instruments do you play?
I got a keyboard behind me. I started playing guitar. I'm learning piano, and I also play the drums. So
Oh, nice,
yeah.
man. Well, one of these days when we have you back on, we'll definitely have to make sure to give music performance for
Oh
sure.
God, no. You don't want that. You'll lose all of your subscribers. I guarantee it.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I think they would love it, but I will say, because like honestly, I mean, it's like that is an awesome office right there, where
I
it's like,
appreciate it.
I mean it, because it's like, and like got to see a little bit of the Ludwig von Drake bobblehead. That was pretty cool right there.
Yeah, listen. Well, my full time job is I actually teach at a university here in Orlando at Full Sail University, and so my wife got me that, and ain't nothing like the professor.
Oh man, like I remember watching those little cartoons on House of Mouse, and watching like the Wonderful World of Color, where especially where he did like some psychiatric evaluation on Donald Duck. Like that was a classic.
Fantastic,
It's
fantastic,
so much of a classic right there.
great stuff. If
Oh
you
man.
can find it, it's really hilarious, especially the one on parenting.
Oh man, like that was a classic right there. I'm hoping YouTube still got that, but it's like I'm not waiting on YouTube. Like I'm hoping Disney Plus will put that back in if they don't have it.
Well, here's the thing. I listen. I've long thought that Disney should like put as much of their older classic stuff, like the Wonderful World of Color and stuff, on Disney Plus
Yes.
because I think a lot of folks our age and older, finally remember that. And listen, if you want to get together and try and petition Disney to put some of those older things on Disney Plus, I'm all in. We'll make it a campaign.
I'm
We'll make it happen.
There we go. Like I'm thinking about doing it, because it's like, and while I'm at it, I'm just like, I want to see, the Owl House bill like not get taken off Disney Plus. Like I want to see that stay on there, or better yet, just like kind of make sure the creator keeps her stuff on that show, because like that's technically her show. So it's like,
Yeah.
there you go. Because
That's
like
way above my pay grade, man.
that's all right. It's like, man, it's gonna be a wild ride all right here on the Jacksonian, because like we always have a lot of fun. And matter of fact, you've got some magic cooking. For those who don't know about the magic you're creating, where can the people find you?
Hit me up on Blue Sky. I'm Jeff Sharon. .bsky.social. I'm also on Threads, Jeff Sharon, and I don't spend as much time on X nowadays at Jeff_Sharon. Mostly, you're going to find me on Blue Sky.
Well, tell your friends, your family, and the cashiers at Publix about the magic that Jeff Sharon brings on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, and on X. But I will say, even though he doesn't post on there as much, give him a follow all the same, because he creates all kinds of magic, especially what we have here on Black and Gold Banneret, where he's got all kinds of magic all right there.
Yeah, and make sure you check out this latest story that I put up there too on Jermaine Taylor. He's our true legend in basketball, and a good dude and a good friend. And for those of you who are wondering more about UCF basketball's history, make sure you take a look at what Jermaine has done in his time at UCF. He's a legend.
Agreed. We've got it all right here. All right here on the Jacksonian. And of course, check out Jeff Sharon for more Central Florida expertise and more of the expertise on Nets, the Devils, Syracuse, Yankees, Giants, and all of it. He's got it all right.
Mostly me complaining about them, but anyway.
There you go, man. And of course, you can check me out on Jackson Johnson 979, where I'm 270 subs away from that magic number 1,000 subscribers. And of course, you can also check me out on Alabama at the Voice of College Football, where I star with Jeffrey Dolly Talk Sports, Travion Ware, and myself Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central Time. And we also have Alabama Primetime Live with Travion Ware and myself for more takes on the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Jeffrey and I take your calls on the Crimson Tide late night, Thursday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. It's always a wild ride. And, some might say it's kind of like the college football equivalent of Ren and Stimpy, but also, I would say it's exactly like Fine Ball, but it's always a fun ride. We've always had some fun calls from each of the callers all right there. And you can also check me out on SEC at the Voice College Football Wire, star with Tucker Harlan and Andrew Miller Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesdays. And I also star on there 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Mondays. And for more updates, what I've got going on the Jacksonian, Alabama with the Voice College Football, or SEC at the Voice College Football, or bi-weekly appearances on Locked Out West Virginia with Mountaineer Paul, or bi-weekly calls on the Fine Ball Show. Check me out, Jats VOCFB on @/Twitter and on Instagram, Facebook, Jackson Johnson 543908. But also check me out on Jackson Johnson 97 Blue Sky Social. All right there, all Blue Sky, where my friend of the show, Mike Debate says, where the skies are blue. And with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, click on the notification bell so you never miss another video or another episode whatsoever. And we will be seeing y'all soon on the next episode of episode 100. Take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay warm. It's cold out.